The year is 1978. The gaming industry is going through a slump. Games like Pong, Pac-Man, and Tetris have been popular, but the lack of innovation in the industry has led people to lose interest. But that all changed with the release of Space Invaders, a game that would change society forever. Space Invaders was a sign of things to come, but also a warning to future gamers. Designed by Tomohiro Nishikato, the game was built on a fundamental premise. The better you did, the harder the game got. And this game was wildly successful. By 1982, it had taken in $3.8 billion, which adjusted for inflation today would be $13 billion. To put that number in context, Fortnite earned close to $14 billion in its first 3 years from 2018 to 2020. Although the financial success of Space Invaders was obvious, not all of its attention was positive. In the UK, a member of parliament, George Folkes, introduced the Control of Space Invaders and Other Electronic Games bill in hopes of controlling this new video game craze and protecting youth from harm. Although the bill was not successful, Folkes wasn't wrong about the potential harm of Space Invaders. On September 10, 1982, psychiatry specialists from Duke University reported 3 cases of what they called Space Invaders obsession. All 3 men were reported to be obsessed with the game, particularly within the weeks prior to their weddings. In fact, one of the men had even delayed his honeymoon to get in just a few more games. Now, there's an interesting twist to the story, so be sure to stay tuned until the very end. As you can see, gaming problems are not a new thing, and the addictive foundation of Space Invaders is still relevant in today's games. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Space Invaders? Addictive? Really? Well, let's investigate. Alright, so look at this game. It's simple, easy to understand, and the mechanics are basic. Now, look at this game. What about this game? Or this game? What are the differences between these games? What are the similarities? You're probably thinking to yourself that there's no way Fortnite and Space Invaders are similar. But if you break it down, they are more similar than different. The term Space Invaders obsession didn't appear out of thin air, but got its name from the game following a video game design formula, eerily similar to games nowadays, although on the surface, much more simple. If you play shooting games, you know how satisfying it can be to get those one-hit headshots or kills. That's exactly what Space Invaders allows you to do, but even on a more significant instant gratification level. This whole game is about shooting the incoming aliens and trying to keep them away from the base. When you successfully aim and shoot at the alien, it instantly explodes in one hit. This gives that oddly satisfying feeling and makes you want to do the same to every alien on the screen until there are no more. However, if you would just clear all the aliens from that first screen and then the game would be over, well, that would be pretty boring. That's why the core secret formula of Space Invaders is actually urgency. The aliens are constantly moving to the bottom of the screen, and if they touch you, you lose. If the alien shoots you, you lose. If you run out of the 3 lives you have, you guessed it, you lose. So all this combined with the increasingly fast-paced music creates a high sense of urgency. This urgency creates a flow state in the player where time and surroundings just kind of melt away and you have increased focus. In fact, Space Invaders was the first game to include a continuous soundtrack throughout the game, creating a feeling of impending doom to evoke a strong mood within the player. Just imagine what would happen if you were in the middle of a game and you looked away from the screen. You'd probably die. So although the game appears simple, its ability to bring you into a flow state was world class. In fact, the only thing that could snap you out of this satisfying flow state is when you lose and you see the game over screen. And this is where the next innovation in Space Invaders was introduced to keep players hooked: the high score. In fact, the game was the first arcade game to record your high score, adding a competitive element. As with most arcade games, it would end when a player loses. So there was no real point where you beat the game. So instead, you just chased a higher and higher score. Although Space Invaders was a game of firsts, this type of game design is still prevalent today, although the technology has certainly become more sophisticated to hook and profit from players. When in the past it was about stealing people's quarters on arcade machines, nowadays it's buy this battle pass, buy this DLC, buy this skin, and on and on. So with the addictive foundation of Space Invaders still relevant today, how do you stop yourself from becoming addicted yourself? Well, the answer is simple: escapism. In the end, that's what it's all about. Space Invaders and millions of other games that have come after it provide that craving to escape the harsh reality of life and to just have some fun. If you remember the 3 men at the beginning of the video, their Space Invaders obsession became a problem weeks before their wedding. Why? Well, maybe they were stressed and anxious about the upcoming commitment to their marriage, and Space Invaders provided a way to escape those feelings. Now, for you watching, does that sound similar to the problem with today's games or what? But before we get into the practical ways to deal with problematic gaming, I promised a twist to the story. All 3 obsessed guys actually stopped gaming after they got married. Now, we can speculate about why they stopped, but to be honest, we'll never know. However, there is a really important lesson here that is important to highlight. All 3 men had a gaming problem for a period of time. In their case, a few months, and then they moved on with their life. You could say they had a gaming addiction episode, a period of time where they experienced negative harm from their gaming. It negatively affected their relationships and led to working with a psychologist. And they are certainly not alone. Since 1978, when Space Invaders came out, we continue to hear from gamers who are struggling with addiction issues. On GameQuitters.com, over 150,000 people search for help every single month from countries all over the world. In our own study with the University of Adelaide investigating members of Game Quitters, we found a few interesting insights. The first is that more than 80% of gamers who participated in the study had been in a gaming problem for more than 12 months. That means for the past 12 months, the last year of your life, you have been harmed from gaming and still stuck in that cycle. We also found that more than 70% of the gamers who participated reported that they had 3 or more occurrences of a gaming problem in the past as well. That means this isn't the first time you've had the gaming problem, but I hope with the help of Game Quitters, you can get back on the right track. So if escapism is the problem, what's the solution? If you are struggling with gaming right now, it's likely not an isolated incident, but a pattern of behavior that has led to many issues. It's impacting your relationships, your career, and your potential. This is especially noteworthy if you are experiencing feelings of depression or using games to escape. Research finds mood symptoms such as these are significantly related to more severe issues of gaming disorder and also more likely to lead to more severe occurrences of gaming disorder throughout your whole life. But there is a hidden opportunity here, and that's being able to see that this is a period of time where you had a gaming problem, but one where you can now end it and start living your life to the fullest. Now, to do this, you will need to escape the vicious cycle of escaping reality, which you can learn about in this video.